There's word this morning the Nobel Economics Prize goes to 3 U.S.-based scholars who study how the institutions countries inherit can make or break economies.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Bitwarden Password Manager, designed to protect users needing access to secure logins for personal or work accounts from any device anywhere. Bitwarden.com. And by the John Templeton Foundation, funding interdisciplinary research and catalyzing conversations that inspire awe and wonder. Learn more at templeton.org.
I'm David Brancaccio. The Nobel Committee today highlighted work of 3 economists focused on how institutions affect poverty and wealth within and among countries. Daron Acemoglu and Simon Johnson of MIT and James A. Robinson at Chicago will share the prize. Institutions that contribute to prosperity are things like the rule of law or freedom of information in the press versus censorship. Here's one of today's laureates, Dr. Acemoglu, on Marketplace back in 2021.
If free flow of information and ideas is curtailed, you're not going to have the very things that have made the United States so successful economically.
Acemoglu speaking with my colleague Kai Ryssdal back in 2021. Let's bring in Marketplace's senior economics contributor Chris Farrell in St. Paul. Institutions can make us richer or poorer. Chris, tell me more.
You had mentioned the rule of law, and do people obey the law? And do people believe the results of the elections? Do you even have an election? Do people have a voice? Do they have a sense that there is order in the society, order in this political economy, which is an old-fashioned term? And what they've done is they looked at how power is distributed in a society, how resources are allocated in a society. And their bottom line conclusion, David, is that if you have a country with inclusive institutions, you allow broad participation in economic activities, you protect property rights, that's absolutely key to a well-functioning economy, they're more likely to experience long-term prosperity.
Right. And the contrast would be countries where the population thinks the system is rigged in favor of someone else, countries where, say, the 1% have their hands on the levers of power.
Right. And there's this wonderful term, they're in charge of extractive institutions. I mean, that gives you just a good idea about all the resources that are flowing into their bank accounts, which are probably somewhere outside of the country. They also look into colonization and the long-term impact of colonization, and democracies promote economic growth. We have a more inclusive history about that, but that transition from a dictatorship to democracy, it's really fraught with challenges. And so if you want to read more about their research and their perspective, wonderful book by 2 of them, Why Nations Fail.
All right, 2 of today's Nobel laureates are authors of Why Nations Fail, The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty. Marketplace's Chris Farrell in St. Paul. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Markets, S&P and NASDAQ futures are up between 2 and 0.3%. Dow futures are down 0.2%. The bond market is closed for Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. On the road and at home, customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto with Progressive Insurance. Learn more about Progressive and bundling at progressive.com. And by C3 Generative AI, verified traceable answers, secure hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free C3.ai. This is Enterprise AI. And by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com.
In the run-up to the election, we're looking at political polarization in America at the company level. Today, one of a series of approaches to turn down the political temperature in a workplace of Harris and Trump supporters. David Livermore is founder of the Cultural Intelligence Center and a professor at the Questrom School of Business at Boston University. Professor, welcome.
Thank you, David.
What's your definition of cultural intelligence, and how could it help bridge divides in a divided community, even a divided workplace?
So cultural intelligence is quite simply the capability to relate and work effectively with people who are different than you. And traditionally, we've looked at that in terms of differences across international domains and also within the domestic region across different ethnicities or generations. But increasingly, cultural intelligence also predicts how well somebody can work across ideological divides or political divides that seem to be showing up everywhere, even in the workplace.
And what does your research show? That the model that you developed to talk about international divides, can it help inform what we're seeing sometimes just at the office?
Yeah. And if I'm honest, sometimes it's actually easier to do it across the international divides. Oh, I can be forgiving that they have a very different perspective. One of the things that we found is just starting with a simple question to somebody like, hey, would you be open to considering a different perspective on that? And that starts to prime people for, well, okay, I'm open to at least hearing your different perspective and then sort of picking it up from there.
I mean, some people will already be concerned because if you're trying to persuade a coworker, that's a tall order. We need to start with at least hearing the person out who you might object to.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I would caution any of us against thinking we're going to proselytize others to see our point of view. An exercise we've sometimes tested out in the research is, can you describe the opposing viewpoint's perspective without using pejorative terms, and to catch each other back and forth like, wait, no, that's not exactly what I'm saying, rather than trying to convince one another that we need to believe the same thing in order to find a way to coexist together in the workplace.
But you're saying that could go a long way?
Yeah, at least in the work setting. When you're suddenly talking about friendships, there's a whole different level of issues there. But the workplace, it's, hey, we're here because we're trying to get a job done. And one of the things that we find in the research that's key is if this is going to go a long way, it really requires a leader with the cultural intelligence to know how to navigate this.
David Livermore, founder of the Cultural Intelligence Center and research professor at Questrom School of Business at Boston University. Among his books, Leading with Cultural Intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Political polarization at the company level. Lots of our office politics angles to explore. Our pieces are accumulating at Marketplace Online. I'm David Brancaccio with our morning report. From APM, American Public Media.